In the run-up to this attack, we had lots of reports about conversations between the US and Israel about the kind of attack that this would be. How much influence did the US have here?
I think that, as Iris was just saying, this would not have gone ahead without the US being told or consulted beforehand, for the simple reason that the US does have the upper hand when it comes to trying to force Israel to do this or that. This hasn't worked very well over the last few months, as we've seen, with Israel repeatedly ignoring the US's calls for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, for not sending troops into southern Lebanon to try to reach some kind of an agreement with Hezbollah. That agreement basically being, if there were a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, then Hezbollah would stop its missile attacks into northern Israel. That hasn't worked either. I think there's a lot of very great frustration in the US amongst President Biden and the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken over the fact that all their efforts so far don't appear to have come to anything. We've just seen Antony Blinken in the Middle East again this week. There have been reports that Hamas is willing to agree to a ceasefire. There was a lot of hope after the death of Yahya Sinwar just over a week ago that this would lead to the freeing of the hostages. The message coming out of Israel appears to be, well, we're on a winning streak. Why on earth would we stop doing what we're doing at a time when we could actually crush Hamas completely and also put Hezbollah out of action? So there's no point in now signing a ceasefire deal where we are on a winning streak. It doesn't appear to have quite gone that way as far as these retaliatory measures are concerned against Iran. And I think that obviously there has been some listening going on amongst the Israeli leadership. Yes, President Biden said don't strike the nuclear facilities. Well, unless we have the news from our correspondent in Tehran is confirmed that there has been a strike against some nuclear facility there. Was it intentional or not, we don't know. But it appears it was mostly military facilities that were targeted, and there were no targeted strikes against oil fields. That was what the US said they wanted. It looks like for the time being that that is what Israel has done. Remember that we're right in the middle of a presidential election in the United States coming up in less than 2 weeks' time. And I think there's very great concern that the US doesn't want to get involved in another regional war right ahead of the presidential election. And it doesn't want an attack against oil fields that would push oil prices up and therefore fuel costs up just before a presidential election. Maybe Israel have been listening to that. But if you listen to what Donald Trump has been saying, he was saying go ahead and bomb those nuclear facilities. That's the main target of what the US and wants destroyed and what Israel should be attacking. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens now and also after the election as to who wins that election and what the next decision will be from the Israelis and from the Iranians.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what sort of impact the vote has. We've had some reaction from several countries. We've had Saudi Arabia calling for restraint. Is that going to happen? Where do we go from here?
It's pretty unlikely that Israel is going to take any notice of calls for restraint. They haven't taken any notice of those calls up until now. It's interesting because the bottom line here is that no one really wants a regional war. No one really wants this to spiral out of control. It is neither in the interests of Israel nor in the interests of Iran. But both sides are up against a war because they have to retaliate against each other. Remember, we've had three key events taking place in the last few months. The 31st of July was the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas. The 27th of September was the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. They were both proxies of Iran. So Iran retaliated on the 1st of October with those 180 missiles it fired into Israel. So Israel has had to retaliate against Iran. When Iran sent those missiles in, they were mostly shot down by the Iron Dome protection system over Israel. And Israel wasn't really attacked or damaged, just very slightly. Iran said, that's it, we've done what we're going to do, we have retaliated. For us, it is over. So now Israel has retaliated against Iran. Where does that leave the situation now? Will Iran again retaliate against Israel? Maybe they will, but it's not in their interest to try to push this even further. They're in a weakened position through Hezbollah being weakened, through Hamas being weakened, through these attacks that they've had. it would not be a good idea for them to retaliate and to provoke Israel even further. And Israel, if it provokes Iran, could face even wider conflict. And it's under the pressure of the United States because the US doesn't want to get involved in this either, as I was saying, especially right before a presidential election.